Apple Vision Pro sunglasses where we can just like buy things with our eyeballs, like without even thinking, like just be like, okay, I want to buy a Chanel classic flap, pre-loved, like blink blink, and then it comes to our door. Like, it's really becoming like that. It's actually too easy to overspend. It's too easy to get sucked into collecting things, and I think people are collecting things a lot more too because they're lonely, and we're lonely because we're getting sucked into these online ideas, and like we're secluding ourselves. We're all stuck on our phones. We're all sucked into TikTok. Our attention span is like very low now because our attention span is TikTok, guys. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Jess. If you love shopping and handbag videos, please like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks so much, guys. So I've tried to film this video a few times, but you know how I just keep blabbing on and I don't know how to properly communicate how I'm feeling right now. Basically, it all started with me watching Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory because I found my old video that I'd recorded from 2002 from the TV. And you know, back in the day when we didn't have YouTube, I would sometimes record movies from the TV if I wanted to keep the movie instead of buying the DVD or the video. One of my favorite movies was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and it came up on TV, and when I was 10 years old, I recorded it on the video cassette. And anyway, me and my boyfriend found it the other day, so we were watching Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and because it was a TV recording, I recorded all like the ads from like 2002, and guys, I just think that back in 2002, life was so much simpler. The TV ads were just so stupid, and like some of them were kind of backward. Like there was a Lynx ad, and like the guy was like slapping a girl with a fish, which was so weird, and then they started making out. I was like, what the hell? And then there was like an ad for property, like houses being sold, and the houses were like $200,000, and I'm like, what the hell is going on with the pricing of houses? Because now houses are like $1 million in Melbourne. Anyways, I was just like shocked by some of the ads. They were really eye-opening. There was a Decoray ad, you know, an Oreo ad, and I just really enjoyed watching those old ads from the early 2000s. And even, it was really weird because there was a car commercial and the cars were still $20,000. So, I don't know, guys, is it just me, or do you think that cars haven't gone up that much in value since like 2002? Because I know houses have gone up a lot, but cars seem to be the same price. I guess, in a way, handbags have also exploded in price since 2002. There's been a lot more hyper-focus on fashion and consumerism, I think, in the last 10 years. This is something that I realized when I was watching these ads from 2002 because it was just all very, like, Aussie and stupid, and, you know, we were kind of, in Australia, I know in Melbourne, we were less exposed to, like, these international brands and, like, you know, different cultures, and, you know, things have changed now. The ads on TV are different. A lot of people, like, I don't even watch TV anymore, guys. Ever since like the last 10 years, I've just been watching YouTube. I've been on, like, you know, when I was 13, I was on MSN all the time. Then I started going on Facebook, MySpace, whatever. And, you know, then it went into YouTube, and I just started watching YouTube. So I'm not even watching the TV anymore. But I can tell you guys, if I was like 30 in the 90s, like 1998, if I was 30, I do not think I would have collected this many bags. Like, honestly, I probably would have, my life would be completely different if I was 30 in the 90s, because just the way I've been exposed to handbags these days, I think, is quite confronting, and it's also become normalized to get plastic surgery. It's become normalized to buy designer handbags like every few weeks, and I know that sounds extreme, but it was far from that in like the late 90s, 2000s, and the early 2000s, because there was even an ad on TV for a news report about cosmetic surgery in 2002, and it was like a new thing for women to get like facelifts, lifts, and it was just not as normalized to get plastic surgery in the early 2000s. But now we're kind of used to seeing this fake kind of person on social media who has, like, you know, decked out in jewelry, who is you know, got a wall of designer bags, who is, you know, living this like fantasy life. And we I don't know, I think people think that's real life, but it's really not. Like, especially if you look at old commercials, like, things were just a lot simpler back then. And anyways, I know I'm blabbing on a lot here, but if it was the 90s, I don't think I would be into collecting handbags as much because, well, back then, yeah, I was looking at magazines, I was looking at celebrities with handbags, you know, Louis Vuitton bags, but, you know, actually there's not a lot of old photos I can see of celebrities wearing Hermes bags, and particularly non-quota bags. You do see celebrities with like Birkins and stuff, but it wasn't something that was like a desirable thing to get when you were younger. And now these days, it's said that people are getting into luxury at a younger age, and it's actually becoming quite common for people as young as 15 to buy their first designer handbag. And it's actually predicted that as time goes by, like in the next 10 years, girls are going to start buying their first designer bags at the age of 13, whereas during the 90s, it was like luxury was definitely targeted towards like people in their late 30s, 40s and 50s. And now the market for luxury is like millennials and Gen Z, which is insane. But I think the main reason for that, honestly, guys, is the cost of living. I think a lot of young people are renting now instead of buying a house because, as I said, houses are like $1 million now. People are also prioritizing their life differently. I think in the 90s, it was more about just like finding a partner, getting married, having kids, buying a house, and like settling down. Like I know a lot of like that's what my parents did, and you know, these days a lot of my friends aren't doing that, guys. Like a lot of my friends are like traveling, or they don't want to have kids, they don't want to get married, they want to rent. Like it's just times are very different, I think, in 2023. And you know, even I think a lot less people are having children, and because of that, people have more money probably to buy luxurious items as well. I just think that, yeah, it's just times have become a lot more complicated because I personally am spending a lot more time on social media and YouTube, and I've got access to shopping a lot easier as well. During the 90s, I remember it was such a thing to go to like the shopping center and walk around, and you know, I was not going in the luxury stores in like 1998 with my parents, guys. Like I was looking at Maya and, you know, David Jones. In Australia, particularly in the early 2000s, there was more fixation on like Australian brands like Alana Hill and Sass and Bide and I don't know, like David Lawrence or you know, things like that. It wasn't as much about like Louis Vuitton and Chanel. That was more marketed towards people who are a little bit more mature or just really wealthy. But now it's become like normal for, or like acceptable for like teenagers to buy Chanel, which is very bizarre. Like given that 20 years ago, that would have been like something that wasn't even like on anyone's mind. Yeah, I've just noticed that in Australian shopping malls anyway, there's been a lot less focus on Australian brands and more focus on international brands, and particularly designer brands and fast fashion. So, you know, Zara, H&M, and, you know, Uniqlo have become very popular in Australia, which was something that was not, you know, a thing in the 90s. For sure, it was more about just like, you know, Australian brands. A lot more things were made in Australia as well. And yeah, I don't think I would have this many handbags if I was 30 in the 90s, because a lot of my bags were also bought pre-loved, which I think the pre-loved market has developed a lot over the last 10 years as well. You know, in Australia, a lot of consignment stores have become more established, like, you know, the Persa Fair, Emier, you know, Luke's at Forward. They were things that weren't happening in the 90s, but now there's a trend towards buying pre-loved bags, which wasn't a thing. I think people have always bought things pre-loved for sure, but handbags maybe not so much. The price of handbags has become completely insane compared to the 90s. The cost of like a Kelly bag in the early 90s would have been, I don't know, like $2,000 probably, like hardly anything. And when I worked at the Persa Fair, I remember a lady consigned her Chanel Classic Flap in small size, and it had the receipt from 2004, and she'd bought it in Melbourne. And the price was like $2,000 in 2004, like for a classic flap, and it had the gold hardware on it, all the packaging. It was really beautifully presented, but you know, a classic flap now is $16,000. So I just think that the way things have changed is insane. And even though handbags are so expensive now, I think it's like become normalized to buy handbags, whereas our life was like a lot simpler in the late 90s. And I just think that I would be living a different life if I was 30 in the 90s, like for sure. It also makes me question what things are going to be like in another 20 years, because as I said, I really do think that younger people are getting into luxury, and if people are going to start getting into luxury at the age of like 13, then yeah, I think that will drastically change people's lives as well. Maybe that won't happen because designer bags are becoming so expensive and they're kind of becoming out of reach for most people. But I do think that that access to the pre-love market still will be appealing to younger people, even though there's a lot of fakes and that sort of thing. Yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens in the next 20 years because, you know, with the rise of fakes as well. And even, you know, I was watching Super Jacob this morning and he was talking about how Pharrell was inspired by Canal Street to design his latest Speedy bags because they were made out of supple leather, and I don't know, maybe he was inspired by fake bags, but what does that say, guys? Like, we're kind of getting overtaken by fake bags here, and authentic bags are coming so expensive. It seems like everybody, like, online is buying designer bags, and it's just, it wasn't a thing in the 90s, guys. Like, I just don't think it was a thing. Like, we were focusing on other things back then. Maybe beauty, maybe, you know, probably there was, like, more of a focus on being skinny in the 90s. Like, there was definitely other toxic things happening. But, yeah, times have changed. So I just wanted to talk about that today and how sometimes I kind of wish that times were like the 90s. Like, I was just watching TV and recording Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory on TV, and that was the highlight of my week, because now things are so easy to access. You can just go online and buy a handbag and like whatever, whereas, you know, as I said, during the 90s we just had the shopping mall. Like, that was it. There was no access to designer bags. That was it. Like, I could hardly even access like Paul Frank. I remember I was obsessed with Paul Frank when I was 13. I used to go on the website all the time, but they did not deliver to Australia. So, like, things are just so easy to buy now. Like, we could just do a few clicks and bam, it's at our door. But that way of shopping is so different to what it was like when I was 10 years old, guys. Like, it is so extreme, and I just think that as time goes by, if technology advances even more, like if we start wearing these Apple Vision Pro sunglasses where we can just like buy things with our eyeballs, like without even thinking, like just be like, okay, I want to buy a Chanel classic flap pre-loved, like blink blink, and then it comes to our door. Like, it's really becoming like that. It's actually too easy to overspend. It's too easy to get sucked into collecting things, and I think people are collecting things a lot more too because they're lonely, and we're lonely because we're getting sucked into these online ideas, and like we're secluding ourselves. We're all stuck on our phones. We're all sucked into TikTok. Our attention span is like very low now because our attention span is TikTok, guys, which that's why I don't have TikTok, because my attention span is bad enough. But like, I get like, you know, I can't even watch a full movie. I get bored. Like, but now like TikTok, I think it's gonna fry everyone's brain, especially, and we don't understand how we're feeling because we're not getting in tune with ourselves anymore. We're just getting instant gratification all the time from online, and we don't have to fight for anything. Like, there's no fight. Everything is so easy to get. There's bags bloody everywhere. Like, people are saying, oh, you know, I think people love the thrill of buying Hermes bags because they are actually something that is hard to get. People are like, oh, it actually feels like you're rewarded when you get a bag. But it's all in your head, guys. Like, it's all in your head. Like, nothing is really that valuable anymore because we all have access to it, really. Like, if you think about it, like, the only thing that is valuable is really like your peace and your time. Like, and that is something that I feel like sometimes is getting taken away from us because we're so hypnotized by this online kind of marketing and online experience, and that getting sucked into the internet like that for so long, and when you step away from it and realize how simple things used to be, it really blows my mind, guys. Like, because yeah, I would not have all these bags if it wasn't for the internet. I can tell you that now. I was extremely influenced. I was hunting down all of these bags in the pre-love market. You know, there were some bags that I bought from the store for sure, but would I be as adamant to go out to Hermes and buy bags if it wasn't for the internet or my influence from watching people on YouTube? Like, probably not. Anyways, that was a really blabby video, and sorry if it didn't make any sense. It was just me ranting as usual, and thanks for watching. And yeah, let me know, guys, do you think that you would have a handbag collection if things were like the 90s, I suppose? Because I think the way that handbags are going, or the trend towards collecting handbags is still growing. I think people are still going to be collecting bags at an even younger age the way things are going. Even though they're becoming so expensive, I just think it has become normalized to wear designer brands, which it wasn't before. Yeah, so anyways, thanks for watching my video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys on my next one. Bye!